Good morning, everybody. Bill Lester here with University of Florida IFAS Extension in Hernando County, and welcome to this morning's class. In just a minute, I'm going to turn everything over to one of our master gardeners, Angela Reid, who's going to teach you all about how to propagate a whole bunch of different plants. And she brought in a whole bunch of different show and tell here. She's going to show you how to propagate cuttings and all the little ins and outs and tips and tricks. But a couple things right off the bat. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. Just ask them in the comments right below the video. But we're going to save all the questions until the end of the presentation, and then we'll go through all the questions live and get them all answered. If you're watching this presentation after the fact, after it's live, because Facebook saves these presentations as videos and you can watch them tonight, tomorrow, whenever you happen to run across it, and you still have a question, go ahead and put it in the comments down below the video, because we go back and we check the videos on a regular basis for a while to catch all the different questions. As always, if you like these presentations, be sure to like it, be sure to give us some positive comments, and something really nice that Angela put together for us is some notes here. So some different notes that kind of give you a printed version of what she's going to go over as far as plant propagation goes. We're going to go ahead and save these as a PDF and upload them to Facebook. It's going to take us a few hours, so it won't be up until this afternoon after the video's already done and uploaded. But we will go ahead and put these up so that you have something to refer to. And of course, afterwards, if you have any questions about propagating plants, your lawn, your vegetable garden, trees in your yard, please feel free to get in touch with us. You can contact us through Facebook, email, give us a call, a million different ways to get in touch with us. Our master gardeners have a nursery that's open every Wednesday and Saturday morning from 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. You can go by there and ask questions, so plenty of ways that we can help answer your questions. So with that, let me go ahead and turn everything over to our master gardener, Angela Reid, who's going to talk all about plant propagation and how to do it.
Hi, I'm Angela Reid, and what we're going to go over today is to start new plants from cuttings. And you say, why would we do that? Because sometimes starting plants from seeds can be really difficult to germinate. It can take a long time, and you may not get the true plant. You may not get the identical plant that you started out with that you bought the seed packet for. So what I'm going to show you is just some little tips and tricks. And a lot of you probably have overlooked, when you purchase your herbs, you maybe have overlooked the produce section in the grocery store. And you can propagate plants from these packets here. And I have started seeds. I've started new plants. This is rosemary. You could do rosemary. You can even do dill and oregano and just a variety of different herbs. What you can't do is cilantro, and you can't do chives because you don't have a leaf node. And that is where the secret comes in, is having a leaf node. Also, don't overlook, if you have an Asian food store, the produce section, you will find that the Thai basil is going to be packaged up. It's going to be cold in a package, which means it's going to be dormant, which means it's going to be perfect for you to get a new cutting from. So when you see the bottom, this is not where you're going to want to stick this in water, because this is just rotted material, and that's what's going to happen to it. So you're going to want to take clippers or scissors or whatever works for you, and you want to get closer to the tip of the plant where the new growth is. So I'm just going to cut off the excess here. And this one is not as sharp as I'd like it to be. So I'm going to use scissors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut this off here. Cut this at an angle, because I want to get as much water in the stem of this as possible. And then I'm going to just shred off the bottom leaves. And this is the part that's going to be underwater. And you're going to want to take off, the extra. It needs a little bit on top for photosynthesis. Can't believe I pronounced that right. But this is really all you need. And then your next step is you have a choice of using a rooting hormone. There's a root gel you can use. You can also use natural honey, and it has to be organic honey. And natural honey is antibacterial. So you want to just coat the bottom node with the honey, wipe some of it off, and then you put that in water. And it's best not to use tap water. You can use distilled water, and that will work fine with that. So that's what we do with that. You can also use a peat pot, and that's what I have in here. I've just now started these last night. I got this ready, and I put that in the peat pot. And you can put more than one in there. So I would want a fuller plant to start with instead of just a stem. And when it's time to plant it, you look on the bottom and you're going to see the roots. Or you can look inside the jar of water and you'll see roots forming in there. And I didn't bring one with me. This one, you can tell it's ready because you saw the roots, and if you tug on it slightly, it doesn't want to go. So you've got good roots in there. This one's ready for planting. So you could do the same with dill. Bet you didn't know you could grow dill from a cutting. Now you see this here, unless you've got a node, there's no nodes there. So this is not going to work. So what you want to do, you're going to have to go up on it where the new growth is and cut this here and this side, and then cut it at an angle, and then dip it. You can dip it in the rooting hormone powder. You can use either. So I'm going to dip it in that, shake it off a little bit, and then I'm going to put it in here. And I've even used, I utilize everything. I recycle a lot. So that's what you can do with herbs. So don't overlook the produce section. You can get some very nice herbs in the produce section. They're going to be dormant because they've been refrigerated. And so they're ready for you to give them some new life. Second, your garden. Let's say you have a favorite, an absolute favorite tomato plant that you just love and it's really producing for you. Well, you can use that. Now here is one that it's crying out to be transplanted. Now I could transplant just this, but then I've got some other issues going up the stem, so I'm not going to do that. I want to get a nice, fresh cutting off of this. Once again, this is a node, this is a node. Wherever there's a joint, that's going to be your node. So you clip that off, and clip it off, clip those off, and cut it at an angle. And this is where the roots are going to form all along there. And again, you can put it in the powder or gel and dip that in water, and that's going to root for you. And this is what the Thai basil away. So also here's the pepper plant. And you could do this, here's the pepper plant. So you would think this would be the one because this is where I cut it off at a joint. Well, it's already been exposed to air, so it's already dying. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and take this nice pepper plant. This is a purple pepper plant, which I especially like. And I'm going to cut here. This is a node that's going to be underwater. This is where the new growth is up here. And you don't want too many leaves that are just going to go bad and rot. So I'm going to cut this at an angle, get my angle going, and this one I'm going to dip in the honey. So it's been sealed up. Wipe off some of the excess, and I'll put that in with the vegetable. And here's the tomato plant. Same with the little cherry tomato plant that I liked. This is where the nodes are. This one's been exposed to air. We're not going to trust that node. We're going to go up on it. And we're going to clip it here. And we're going to dip this one in powder and put that there. Now, as for, you could do this with house plants. You can do this with outdoor plants. In Florida, where we live, a lot of your house plants are outdoor plants. And the umbrella tree makes a really nice, Schefferelia makes a very nice house plant. And instead of buying a new one, you can get one from your friend. Say, can you just cut me off a branch? And that is going to be, this is going to be the new plant here. I've got several nodes where roots are going to come out of. And this one, I'll go ahead and use the powder. It's kind of randomly whether I decide to use the powder or which I'm going to use. You see how that's coated all the way through? You don't need that much. You don't need to put a gob of powder in the water. And that's going to go in there. So that's going to be rooting. Now for coleus, coleus is so easy to root. And the same thing. This is your node. This is your node. This is exposed to air. This is going to rot. We don't want to use that part. We want to cut a fresh piece from that. Same here, fresh piece there. And let's go ahead and take off the excess because it's gonna drop down in the water and it could just rot in the water. And that's what we don't want. You want just to leave enough leaves so it can get energy from the photosynthesis. So here we go. Dip these in the honey this time. Okay, put that in there. Now, around your house, I'm sure a lot of people use these and throw them away. I never throw these away. These are my little propagation houses, and that's what I use. And whether you want to use a peat pellet, if you don't want to spend the money, you can just put vermiculite in there. You can put in perlite, just something to hold the stem so it's going to stand straight up. You can use a soilless mix, or you can use a mixture of vermiculite and perlite in there, and that'll help these stand up. And you go through the same process. You want to dab each one of these. This one, I would not do the whole thing. You see, I cut them off in here just to give them each a chance, because rather than forming roots, this is going to act like a flower in a vase. It's going to want to draw up all the water into all the leaves, and so the energy that it should be sending down to the root, it's not going to be doing that. It's going to be trying to keep all these leaves alive. So that's why you want to break it off, only do the new growth, and then put it in some sort of a humidity dome. The same with this. You can take like a paper bag or a Ziploc baggie and tent it. You don't want it to be touching the leaves at any time, because it's going to have a buildup of water and then it could cause the leaves to rot. So you can take a milk jug and you can just cut the bottom of the milk jug or the top of the milk jug out. Actually, I would cut the bottom of the milk jug out so you'd have something for air. You could take the cap on and off, and that would be give you ventilation, so you wouldn't have condensation build up inside the milk jug, and you would have enough humidity so the leaves wouldn't start drying out and start robbing energy from the bottom of the node, and that node can focus on forming a new root. So that is, let's see, and here's a basil plant, and this is one that was started from seed. But if I tried to start this from seed, if I was to get a seed from this plant thinking that the mother plant is going to be the same as the new plant will be the same as the mother plant, that's not always true, because this was grown in a hothouse and we don't really know the conditions that it was grown in. So when you get a plant like this, the first thing that I do is that I will start trimming on it. So once again, I will cut both sides of the nodes off, both sides of the branches, cut it at an angle, and get rid of this and this. And if you have some spaghetti sauce going, you know what to do with these. So this again, I would dip it in the honey all the way down to the node, wipe off the excess, and then I would put that in water. So, let's see, I think I'm ready for questions.
Okay, can you use organic honey for fruit tree clippings?
I don't see why you couldn't. It depends on, you'd have to have, if you were going to be putting it in a bucket, I imagine, a bucket of water if you're talking about a fruit tree. I would try either way. I would do an experiment and do one with the organic honey, and I would do one with a form of root tone. It depends on your household environment, whether if you're doing this outside, what is the environment outside? Are you going to maintain proper humidity? Is it going to put a drain on the plant? That's something that we could research and find out. I could experiment, yes.
Sure. And I was reading through the comments. First of all, I want to mention that yes, this is being recorded. So afterwards, after we're all done, Facebook takes a few minutes to cycle the video, and the video is going to be available for everybody to watch again later on. Tell your friends. Be sure to tag them on Facebook, and that way they'll be able to find the video very easily. But Renee asked about, why do you use honey on some of the cuttings and the rooting hormone powder on some, and is there really a big difference between the two?
There's not a big difference. If I use the honey on, I think a larger stem cutting, because it would give me really good coverage, and I know that when you put it in water, sometimes it will dilute it. So you want to keep your water sterile, but it's just a matter of choice. And I like to do experiments. I like to try all different things. So,
yeah, it's probably worth trying on different plants, because I know that there are some plants that are so easy to root from cuttings.
Oh, yeah.
You could literally just cut a piece off and throw it on the sidewalk and it would root.
Exactly. Especially in Florida, yes.
Yes. And then Eric asked about white mites that destroy plants. And I'm not really sure, Eric, if you want to get in touch with us with pictures or a more specific question. If you're talking about white flies,
yeah,
they get on plants and they could be a major pest outdoors in the summer. And that's going to be a problem for you to try to control. But if you want to get in touch with us, whether the white mites or really white flies or something else, please feel free to do so.
Yeah.
And Mary Jo asked about, can you take cuttings, or have you ever tried taking cuttings from fruit trees?
From fruit trees. I have not. I have not done fruit trees. It's an experiment that I think I will try. I just got a little papaya tree in my yard, so I will experiment with that one.
Yeah, I know a lot of trees are difficult to take direct cuttings from. It works on some, but not many. What you have to do is called grafting.
I was just going to say, yeah, I would get some peat and I would get some rubber bands or twist ties, and I would take the cutting that you cut off of a tree and I would put it back on the mother tree in a joint, and then I would keep it moist with peat moss, and I would put a little bit of plastic around it to keep that area moist, and then roots would form that way. That's the only way I know of doing it.
Well, I think what we're going to do is I'll plan on putting together a class on grafting, and we'll go out and shoot a little video, because you actually have to see it outdoors to understand how to do grafting, and then we'll find an expert, and the expert's probably not me. We'll find somebody more knowledgeable on grafting.
Since I did any of that. I was a master gardener in Oregon, and I remember we did a class on that, but that was years ago. So.
Oh, grafting is literally a hobby. It's the
Yeah.
kind of thing that people work at and practice for years. They have a lot of equipment for sale. It can work very, very well. You can start a lot of brand new trees from one existing tree if you know how to do it. So yeah, we'll plan a class on that.
Yeah, I remember when I did it, once I removed it from call it the mother tree, and kept it in the little bundle. When I planted it, I didn't give it enough close attention, and I lost it then. So
Yeah.
there's a transition period that is a secret that I think a good thing would be to have a class on that, because that's where I lost mine, is during the transition period.
Yeah, but like with anything, it takes practice. You have to go out there and practice. And like even with cuttings, I've learned that if I start 3 cuttings, all 3 will die. If I start 100 of them, all 100 will survive, and now I have 97 I'm not really sure what to do with. So
True.
so it just takes practice, guys. Don't be afraid to go out there
Yeah.
and practice with it.
Share plants with your friends. You have a little party where you're trading cuttings. I think that would
There
be
you
fun.
go.
How often do you need to change the water for the rooting plants?
Minimum of like maybe after 4 days, or once a week at a minimum. I always look at the water. I usually have my cuttings right there on the kitchen counter while I'm washing dishes, so I see them. And if I see anything floating, if I see any dead fraying growth at the bottom, then I know I've got a problem, and I've got to keep that one extra clean. And I might add just a little pinch of rooting hormone to the water, just as a little extra good luck thing, you know.
Okay. Robin asked, she had problems with snails killing her plants. Do you know what to do to get rid of snails?
That would be another question. I'm not big on snails.
Okay.
Well, what you need to do to get that snail question answered is come back and tune in to our virtual plant clinic
Yes.
at 10 o'clock Thursday morning, and we'll bring it up then.
Okay, great. Susan asked, can she use organic cinnamon instead of what you're using?
I've heard people try that, and I'm going to try that at home. I know that cinnamon has antibacterial properties, so I don't see why it wouldn't work.
Cinnamon does. Cinnamon may not be strong enough to make a huge difference, so obviously you're going to have to pay attention to sanitation and the water and changing the water. But cinnamon definitely doesn't hurt anything, and
But
may
I think it
actually
would
help a
cloud the
little bit.
water, but yeah.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't. I like to have the water clear, and with cinnamon, then I'm not sure, but that's what I'm going to try at home. Thanks for the idea.
Okay. The rooting powder, Marie asked, does it wash off though when you pop it into the water?
No, you could see where it's clinging a little bit, and it doesn't need to be completely covered. I mean, it doesn't need to stay on there. What it does is it had pretty much instantly gone in, because you wet the cutting first. Unless I said that, I may have missed that point, that before I dip it in the water, you want to have it wet, and that way you know that it's going to cling. And shake it off, and if you look at it now, it's on there, but it's on there enough. It's see, it is clinging to it.
And you don't need a huge amount
You don't.
on the cut end. And what that is naturally occurring plant hormone that just stimulates rooting. So some plants you don't need the rooting hormone. Rooting hormone does help with other plants. That's kind of where practice comes into the equation here. If you practice on a lot of different plants, you'll learn what's really easy to start and what's more difficult to start.
Okay. Next question is from Jeanette. She said, I went crazy pruning my bougainvillea plant using all the cuttings and propagated them. Now I have about 12 bougainvillea. Well, that's not too much of a problem, right? Okay.
Well, I always like to hedge my bets, and like I mentioned, if I'm starting cuttings, I'll go ahead and start 100 of them, because I figure, well, at least one is going to survive. And what seems to happen is either 2 of them survive or 98 survive. So you never know. You have to kind of hedge your bets.
Okay. Marianne asked, what is this hormone, this rooting hormone? Is it natural?
I'll leave
There's a lot of different brands.
Yeah,
The one
that's
brand
the
you have
thing.
here is probably the most commonly used one that you're going to find at lawn and garden centers.
Yeah.
It's Rutone, and exactly, it is a plant hormone. I'm not too familiar with exactly their process for creating the products. And I really couldn't tell you off the top of my head whether it's cleared or allowed under organic crop production regulations with the USDA. Like I said, it does help with some plants. Other plants are so easy to start from cuttings that you really don't need the rooting hormone. But it does help. It's a good way to kind of hedge your bets.
Okay. Lisa says, I propagate outside in the shade for more space. Is this year too hot? I'm not having a lot of luck.
Well, the heat and the humidity, even in the shade, I don't know. To me, these are little babies, and I like to protect them. I do most of this indoors. Is she doing it in a greenhouse or just under a shade tree? I'm not sure.
Our master gardeners do it at our nursery underneath a shade tree in a fully shaded spot. It has been hot. It's been a hot summer. When the weather, like as it's supposed to do over the next few days, cools off a little bit, it's going to be a lot easier on the cuttings. But keeping them in a fully shaded spot right after you start the cuttings is very important. Otherwise, if you put them outdoors in the full sun or part sun or a couple hours of sun, they're probably going to cook.
Okay. What about grapevines from the store? Can you propagate those?
Well, if they don't have leaves on them, and the leaves is where you get into the photosynthesis, where you're going to get the energy. If you just have a stem of grapes and a grapevine, it's already dead. So I don't think
because
that would
with
work.
grapes, when you buy them at the store, the stem that comes off of the main stem is just where the flowers and the fruit are.
Yeah.
If you go out to a farm or out in the wild,
Definitely.
or if you go to the store or order a grapevine and you take a cutting off of it
That would work.
with the actual vine, it should root pretty easily.
Yeah.
Okay, and someone also asked about carrots and onions, propagating those.
I've seen a lot of people on Facebook that do that. They take a little piece of carrot or onion or celery stump.
You end up with the green. You will not get a carrot from that. But carrot greens are nice in a salad.
Yeah.
You know, but it's
It's
a
so
root.
easy to grow proper carrots from seeds in your garden and get a crop of carrots. Celery's a little trickier. Celery needs a lot of water. Celery's a very thirsty plant. And onions, if you plant them now, like right now from seed, you can grow big, beautiful, sweet onions that you'll be picking right around Easter, April-ish or so.
What about hibiscus?
Yeah, you should be able to do it with hibiscus. I just made I didn't bring it with me, but I trimmed off the flower. The idea is that plant has already sent that energy to the flower. So I probably should go back, in fact, when I get home, and I'm going to take a cutting off the hibiscus that doesn't have a flower bud on it. So it hasn't sent the energy to that flower bud. So the energy's still going to be in the stem. In other words, all the carbohydrates that it needs to form a new plant are still going to be right there. Once it flowers, it's sent that energy upwards into the flower. So that's where I'm going to take the new cuttings. So yes, you could do it with a hibiscus.
Okay, someone asked, can they propagate kunte plants?
Oh.
No, you can't from cuttings, although with a kunti, when you plant one, it turns into a clump that gets larger and larger and larger. you can, after a number of years, dig that whole clump of kuntis up
And separate.
separate them. You may need an axe, because I did it once before, and it is some pretty thick wood. You need either a sharp shovel or an axe to chop it up into chunks, as long as each chunk has at least a couple leaves and a couple roots. If a chunk of kunti has leaves and roots, you can plant it, and you get a whole separate plant from that.
Okay, great. What about American beautyberry?
You can start that from cuttings. I've seen that done before. It may be a little tricky. You're not every cutting is going to survive, but you can do that from cuttings.
Here's a question from Linda. Do you re-dip after you change the water? Do you have to re-dip
No.
the plants in the rooting hormone?
No,
Okay.
just keep the water clean.
Okay. All right. I think that's it.
Is that pretty much it?
Yes.
Well, like I said, if anybody is watching this after the fact as a recording and you have any questions, go ahead and put them down, and we'll get back to them. We'll do our very best to respond and answer to them. And if you like this video, please be sure to like it. Be sure to share it with all your friends. Be sure to tag them on Facebook to watch it. Facebook will post this as a video within the hour that you can watch over and over if you like. And we will be back again really soon. Let me remind everybody, tune in Thursday morning at 10 for our once-a-week virtual plant clinic, where if you have any of these kind of questions with anything else in your lawn and garden, you can ask the questions and we'll be able to answer them. Until then, thank you so much, Angela. It was
All right.
great.
Thank you.